Employers, what's the most savage I quit moment that destroyed your company's image overnight? Story 1. I managed a retail clothing store where turnover was already brutal. One day, our most popular employee, a young woman everyone loved, was pushed to work a double after her grandmother passed away. She begged for time off, but corporate denied it, claiming funerals aren't emergencies. She finished the shift, then walked onto the sales floor with a mic in hand. She announced to the packed store, "If this company treats grieving employees like disposable robots, shop at your own risk. I quit, and I hope you all find somewhere else to spend your money." She ripped off her name tag, dropped it in the register, and walked out. Within a week, word spread on social media. Customers were boycotting, and our store's sales tanked 40%. Corporate tried to spin it, but screenshots of their email denying her time off destroyed their reputation faster than any ad campaign could fix. Story 2. I worked at a small tech startup where leadership was questionable. Our lead developer had been promised equity, bonuses, and a promotion for nearly 2 years. He was the backbone of the company, the only person who actually understood the core system we sold. During a huge investor presentation, the CEO bragged about team loyalty and strong leadership. That's when the lead developer stood up, plugged his laptop into the projector, and pulled up Slack screenshots showing all the ignored messages where he asked for pay and equity. Then he said, "Since loyalty only works one way here, I quit. Good luck running the system without me. I wrote every line of code, and I'm not leaving documentation." He walked out in front of the investors. Within hours, the investors pulled out. The system crashed within weeks, and the company folded in 6 months. Story 3. A restaurant I managed had one of the best chefs in the city. He carried the place. The owner, however, was greedy and constantly berated staff. After being humiliated in front of the whole kitchen one too many times, the chef had enough. One Saturday night, with a full reservation book, he calmly stepped out into the dining area, still in his apron, and said loudly, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only chef here tonight. I've just been told I'm replaceable. So, tonight, I'm proving that true. I quit. Bon appetit." He set down his knives, walked out, and half the dining room got up and left with him. Word spread through Yelp, food blogs, and local news. The restaurant went from city gem to avoid at all costs almost overnight. Within 3 months, it shut down completely. Story 4. At my old office, one guy was constantly doing the work of 3 people. Management knew but milked him for everything. When his boss denied him a raise for the 3rd year straight, he hatched his exit plan. He printed out every critical client report, login credential, and system guide, but left them in a neat binder on his desk with a note taped to the front. "This is everything I do. Since I was told my job isn't worth more pay, good luck handling it without me. I quit." He timed it for Friday at 4 p.m. By Monday morning, the entire company was on fire. Missed deadlines, angry clients, nobody knew the systems. Clients started canceling contracts one by one, and by the end of the quarter, layoffs began. His mic drop exit didn't just take him out, it basically imploded the company. Story 5. My cousin worked in a luxury car dealership. The salespeople were sharks, and management was worse. One of the top salesmen, the kind who sold 6-figure cars weekly, finally snapped after being denied commissions they forgot to process. During the biggest weekend event of the year, he walked into the showroom with a giant poster board listing every shady practice the dealership used. Inflated fees, fake limited offers, and how they screwed both customers and employees. He stood next to a $200,000 car and announced to the entire crowd, "This dealership cheats you and cheats us. I've had enough. I quit." He handed out copies of contracts showing hidden fees, dropped his company badge on the hood of the car, and walked out while customers applauded. Local news picked it up, and within weeks, sales crashed so hard that corporate pulled the dealership's franchise license. Story 6. I used to work in a mid-sized law firm where junior associates were treated like cannon fodder. One associate, fresh out of law school, was doing 80-hour weeks and basically carried a senior partner's caseload while being paid pennies. After being publicly humiliated for a minor mistake in front of clients, he snapped. During a big client meeting, he calmly slid a flash drive across the conference table to the clients and said, "Here's the complete casework I've done on your file. Every deadline, every motion, it's all me. The person you're paying 6 figures to barely touched it. You can decide if that's who you want representing you. As for me, I quit." Then he walked out with his bag. The clients left with him, the partner's reputation went up in flames, and within a month, Half the firm's biggest accounts were gone. That one quit practically gutted a 40-year-old firm. Story 7. At a regional airline, a flight attendant who'd been mistreated for years finally had her breaking point. After her request for medical leave was denied, she finished a long-haul flight, grabbed the intercom, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is my last announcement for this airline. You've all been great, but I can't keep working for a company that treats staff like disposable parts. If you care about human decency, don't fly with us again. I quit." Passengers applauded, recorded it, and posted it online. The video racked up millions of views in days. Suddenly, news outlets were calling. Hashtags were trending, and ticket sales plummeted. The airline scrambled with PR statements, but the damage was already done. That 1 minute of honesty cost them millions in lost revenue and years of trust. Story 8. I managed a chain gym where one personal trainer carried the entire membership retention. The guy was charismatic, dedicated, and clients only stuck around because of him. Management decided to cut his commission to save costs. During a staff meeting, he stood up, pulled out a stack of signed cancellation forms from members and said, "These 100 clients are following me to the independent gym I'm opening next week. You cut my pay? You cut your business. I quit." He walked out, and within 2 months, the branch went from packed every night to completely empty. Corporate closed the location within 6 months because revenue dropped so low. His "I quit" not only destroyed the gym's image, but also fueled the rise of his own thriving business across town. Story 9. In a small-town newspaper office, the editor-in-chief constantly censored stories to please advertisers. One journalist, fed up with watching corruption go unreported, waited until the paper's anniversary gala. In front of local officials, sponsors, and the press, she grabbed the microphone and said, "This paper has killed every real story for money. Tonight, I'm done being your puppet. Tomorrow, I'll publish the truth online. I quit." The next morning, she launched her own blog and dropped a bombshell expose on local corruption, complete with documents the paper had refused to run. It went viral, sponsors fled the paper, and subscriptions tanked. Within a year, the 100-year-old paper shut down, while her blog became the town's primary news source. Her resignation literally flipped the power structure of the town overnight. Story 10. I worked in corporate marketing for a luxury hotel chain. One of our PR managers was brilliant but constantly undercut. After a humiliating meeting where the CEO took credit for her campaign that had just gone viral, she snapped. She stood up, projected her own emails, drafts, and campaign analytics on the big screen, proving it was her work. Then she said, "This is the last free campaign you'll ever get from me. Since you love taking credit, take credit for the fallout too." I quit. She left, and within a week, she posted her entire experience on LinkedIn. It spread like wildfire. Potential recruits refused to apply. Ex-employees piled on with their own stories, and guests started canceling stays after the scandal hit the news. The hotel's luxury image collapsed into a meme. One woman walking out the door tarnished years of brand building in days. Story 11. I used to work at a call center that handled customer service for a massive internet provider. Our top supervisor was constantly mistreated by corporate, underpaid, denied promotions, and forced to motivate us through impossible metrics. One morning, during an all-hands meeting where executives flew in to boast about profits, he calmly turned on a projector and showed live recordings of the customer service line. Calls where elderly people were being scammed into unnecessary upgrades. He looked at the execs and said, "This is what you call good business? You've ruined lives for bonuses. I'm done." Then he removed his headset, dropped it on the table, and walked out. Someone filmed it, posted it, and the video went viral. Customers canceled in droves. Lawsuits popped up, and within months the company had to rebrand entirely just to survive. His quit wasn't just savage. It forced an entire industry change. Story 12. A friend of mine worked for a construction company notorious for cutting corners on safety. One day, a foreman who'd spent 15 years with the company had had enough after management ignored repeated warnings about a faulty scaffolding system. During a public inspection, with investors and city officials present, he held up photos of the unsafe conditions and said, "If you want your names tied to this company, fine, but I won't be here when the first worker falls to his death. I quit." He handed the photos to the inspectors, tossed his hard hat down, and left. The site was immediately shut down, fines rolled in, and the project lost its contract. Word spread through the union, and suddenly the company couldn't hire anyone reputable. The company's reputation collapsed overnight, all because one man refused to be complicit. Story 13. At a luxury fashion brand's flagship store, one of the senior stylists was beloved by celebrity clients. Management constantly underpaid her, while exploiting her connections. On the night of a high-profile launch party with influencers and press everywhere, she stood on stage next to the CEO and said, "Before this circus starts, let me make something clear. Every design here tonight that you'll praise was stolen from unpaid interns. Every sale you'll see is fueled by exploitation, and I won't be part of it anymore. I quit." She dropped her staff badge in front of everyone and walked out in her evening gown. Within hours, hashtags about stolen designs were trending, and celebrities canceled contracts. What was meant to be a glittering PR event turned into a scandal that tanked the brand's exclusive image in a single evening. Story 14. I worked for a big box retail store where one employee, quiet, dependable, always on time, was constantly overlooked. One Black Friday, after being forced into another 16-hour shift without proper breaks, he climbed onto the checkout counter, grabbed the PA mic, and shouted, "Attention shoppers, the reason half the lines are closed is because this company treats us like slaves. We're underpaid, denied breaks, and management laughs when we ask for help. Spend your money here if you want, but know it's built on our misery. I quit." He dropped the mic, walked out to cheers from employees, and multiple shoppers followed him out in solidarity. Videos blew up online, turning Black Friday into a PR disaster. Corporate issued empty apologies, but customer trust never fully recovered. That one speech cost the company millions. Story 15. At a mid-sized hospital, a senior nurse who had worked through countless double shifts was denied her vacation for the fourth year straight. On her last day, instead of just handing in her resignation, she called a press conference outside the hospital. Surrounded by patients, staff, and reporters, she laid out statistics, patient-to-nurse ratios, ignored safety violations, and emails from admin dismissing concerns. She ended with, "I swore an oath to care for patients. This hospital swore an oath to maximize billing. I refuse to be part of it anymore. I quit." Reporters ate it up, and by evening, the story was headline news. Donations dried up, patient reviews plummeted, and other nurses began quitting en masse. Within months, the hospital's reputation was in ruins, and their state-of-the-art wing sat nearly empty. Story 16. I worked in a mid-sized advertising agency where one creative director was the golden goose. He was behind every successful campaign we'd won in the last 5 years. The CEO constantly belittled him in public, though, claiming his vision was the reason for the wins. One Friday morning, during a huge pitch to a billion-dollar client, the creative director plugged in his laptop, opened the deck, and instead of ad campaign, he showed a folder of contracts where his name had been removed from credits and bonuses. He calmly looked at the client and said, "They've stolen every idea I ever made. If you want real creative work, come with me." I quit. He closed his laptop and walked out. The client followed him. By Monday, 3 more clients canceled their contracts, and the agency went from thriving to bleeding money. It never recovered from that one walkout. Story 17. A family-owned bakery in my town relied almost entirely on one pastry chef who was famous for his recipes. The owners treated him like dirt. Minimum wage, no benefits, and constant verbal abuse. On the morning of the town's annual festival, where the bakery always made thousands, he unlocked the shop, walked in, and wheeled every single tray of pastries he'd baked the night before across the street to a competitor's booth. Then he put a sign on the bakery door that read, "Closed today. The only good pastries are across the street where I now work." I quit. Customers flooded the competitor, the bakery owners had to face empty shelves, and within weeks they shut down. The chef went on to open his own patisserie and became a local legend. His quitting story is still told around town, like folklore. Story 18. My brother worked at a small IT company where management ignored his repeated warnings about cybersecurity. He was the only one who knew the network inside and out. After yet another brush-off, he waited until the company was demoing its system for a huge government client. In the middle of the meeting, he pulled up the live system on his laptop and, with 2 keystrokes, bypassed every supposed security measure. He turned to the client and said, "This is what you're buying. I've begged management to fix it. They refused. I won't be held liable. I quit." He walked out, leaving stunned execs and a horrified client. Needless to say, the contract was canceled immediately. That one moment didn't just destroy the company's image. It opened them up to lawsuits and investigations that bankrupted them in under a year. Story 19. At a mid-sized college, an adjunct professor who had been promised a permanent position for years finally lost patience. The dean kept stringing him along with empty promises while stealing credit for his published work. During graduation, right before handing out diplomas, the professor took the mic and said, "Congratulations, graduates. A word of advice. Demand better than I did. This school underpays its teachers, steals their research, and values money over learning. And with that, I quit. He tossed his gown on the stage and walked off. Parents recorded the whole thing. Students cheered. And within days, the video went viral. Donations dried up, alumni spoke out, and the college's reputation tanked so badly they had to launch a full PR campaign to recover. Story 20. I worked at a mid-level car parts factory. The floor manager had been bullied by upper management for years, even though he kept production smooth. When they denied him a raise again, he decided to go out with flair. On his last shift, with everyone watching, he shut down the production line, walked up to the PA system and announced, "This factory runs because of us, not because of the suits upstairs. I'm done giving them my life for scraps. I quit." Then he handed his gloves to the youngest worker on the line and walked out. The problem was, nobody else knew how to manage the machines like he did. The line stayed dead for 2 weeks, clients pulled contracts, and the company's reputation for reliability crumbled. They ended up closing the plant within a year. Story 21. I worked at a high-end restaurant in a big city where the sommelier was basically the face of the place. He curated the wine list, knew every guest by name, and had industry awards under his belt. Management constantly underpaid him and bragged that he'd never leave because he loves the job too much. During a Michelin inspector visit, literally the most important night of the year, he brought the inspector the bottle, poured a glass, and said in front of everyone, "This is the last glass I'll ever pour here." Management steals tips, lies to staff, and treats us like trash. If you want wine expertise, find me at the new restaurant across the street. I quit. He placed the corkscrew on the table and left. The inspector noted the chaos, Michelin never gave the star, and within 6 months the restaurant's prestige was gone. Story 22. My cousin worked in a warehouse for a major online retailer. He and his co-workers were pushed into brutal overtime schedules with no breaks. One day, after being denied time off for his daughter's surgery, he hatched a plan. During peak holiday season, he climbed onto a forklift in the middle of the floor and shouted, "This company would rather ship your packages than let a father be with his sick child. I'm done. I quit." A co-worker filmed it, and the clip went viral. Customers flooded social media with hashtag boycott posts. Suddenly, the company's carefully polished, family-friendly image crumbled overnight. Within weeks, management rolled out PR campaigns and empty promises of reforms, but it was too late. Their reputation as a ruthless employer was cemented thanks to one man's public exit. Story 23. At a boutique marketing firm, a junior copywriter was constantly exploited. She created viral campaigns but was never given credit. During a massive client gala, where the CEO was accepting an award for Innovative Campaign of the Year, she stepped onto the stage mid-speech, grabbed the mic and said, "That award belongs to me. Every word, every idea, every line of that campaign was mine. I haven't been paid for overtime in months, and I won't stand by while liars get trophies. I quit." The ballroom went dead silent. She walked out in her cocktail dress, leaving the CEO fumbling. By the next morning, LinkedIn was ablaze with her story. Clients began pulling accounts, and the agency's award-winning reputation shattered. Within a year, the firm lost its biggest contracts and laid off half its staff. Story 24. In a private high school, one teacher who had mentored students for over a decade finally lost patience after the board cut arts funding for the 3rd time. At the annual donor dinner, with alumni and parents present, he showed a slideshow of all the broken promises. Textbooks never purchased, unsafe classrooms, and board members' inflated salaries. He ended with, "You don't care about education, you care about profits. I will not help you rob these students anymore. I quit." He dropped his notes, walked out, and half the parents followed him, demanding tuition refunds. Within days, the slideshow leaked online, and the school's prestigious image evaporated. Donors pulled millions, and the once elite academy struggled to stay afloat. Story 25. I worked at a mid-sized gaming studio where crunch time was the norm. Our lead artist, whose style defined the entire game, was pushed to 100-hour weeks with no credit promised. At the game's launch event, streamed live to thousands of fans, he was invited on stage. Instead of hyping the game, he turned to the audience and said, "Every beautiful thing you see here was made by exploited artists. We worked ourselves sick while executives cashed bonuses. I can't support this anymore. I quit." He dropped his badge, walked out, and fans erupted online. Overnight, the studio went from most anticipated release to do not support. Reviewers piled on, investors panicked, and the game flopped so hard the studio laid off half its staff within months. One man's honesty destroyed years of hype in under 10 minutes. Story 26. I worked at a local TV station where the evening news anchor was basically the face of the network. He was polished, trusted, and viewers tuned in because of him. Behind the scenes, though, management slashed staff pay, forced skeleton crews, and pushed sensationalism. One night, instead of reading the scripted news, the anchor looked directly into the camera and said, "Live on air. I can't keep lying to you. This station's silence is real reporting and treats its employees like garbage. Tonight is my last broadcast. I quit." Then he calmly removed his mic and walked off the set while the cameras were still rolling. Clips went viral immediately. Viewers abandoned the station in droves, advertisers pulled funding, and within a year, the station merged with another because its brand was toxic. His resignation wasn't just savage. It was televised history. Story 27. A friend of mine worked at a chain daycare center where staff were paid minimum wage but charged parents sky-high tuition. The kids were treated well by the teachers, but management constantly cut corners on safety. Broken locks, expired food, overcrowded rooms. One afternoon, during a parent open house, the lead teacher stood in front of the parents and said, "We love your kids, but management doesn't. They put profits over safety every single day. I can't stay here and pretend otherwise. I quit." She dropped her key card on the floor and walked out. Parents pulled their kids immediately. Word spread on Facebook parenting groups, and the center's reputation collapsed. Within 3 months, all 4 locations in the city shut down. That teacher's exit became the spark for real reform in how parents chose daycare. Story 28. I worked in an architecture firm where one designer was basically the only reason we kept winning city contracts. Management loved to take his work, slap their names on it, and ignore his requests for partnership. During a huge unveiling of a new civic center design, with press and city officials present, he walked on stage after the CEO's speech and said, "This design isn't his. It's mine, and it's the last one they'll ever get out of me for free. I quit." He held up his resignation letter, handed it to the mayor, and walked out. The mayor later confirmed his story, the press jumped on it, and suddenly the firm was blacklisted from city projects. Years of reputation, gone in a 5-minute declaration. The designer opened his own studio months later and ended up winning the same city contracts back under his own name. Story 29. At a logistics company I used to work for, one dispatcher ran the entire night shift, routing hundreds of trucks, managing emergencies, and keeping deliveries on time. He begged for a second dispatcher because the workload was impossible. Management refused. One night, right before the holiday shipping rush, he sent a company-wide email. "This entire operation runs because of me, and since I'm told I'm replaceable, let's test that." Effective immediately, I quit. He logged out, left the office, and didn't return. Within an hour, deliveries were a mess. Drivers had no instructions, clients were calling in panic, and the system crashed. Word got out fast, and the company lost its biggest contracts. What had been a reliable logistics firm suddenly had a reputation for chaos. And it all started with one email from a burned-out dispatcher. Story 30. A small indie music label had one producer who basically made every track a hit. Artists loved him, but the label's execs underpaid him and stole credit. During a live-streamed release party, he grabbed the mic after the CEO's speech and said, "Every beat, every sound, every track you love. I made it. They took the money. I took the exhaustion. This is my last project for them. I quit." He unplugged his laptop from the mixing board and walked out. The live audience erupted, and fans online started boycotting the label. Within days, artists began pulling their contracts to follow him, and the label's image tanked. Within a year, the label went bankrupt while the producer launched his own studio that skyrocketed. His exit became legendary in the local music scene. Story 31. I worked at a mid-sized law enforcement software company that sold crime-predicting tools to police departments. The lead data scientist had been pushing for months to stop selling the product because the algorithms were biased and inaccurate. Management ignored him, bragging about profits. At a major trade show, right in the middle of the CEO's keynote, he walked up, took the mic, and projected a slide showing how the software unfairly targeted specific neighborhoods. He said, "This company sells lies that ruin lives. I won't be complicit. I quit." The audience gasped, journalists swarmed, and within hours the story was trending. Cities canceled contracts, lawsuits piled up, and the company's name became synonymous with corruption. That one public resignation essentially buried the company's credibility in one day. Story 32. At a professional basketball team's front office, one athletic trainer was beloved by players but mistreated by management. After years of low pay and long hours, he decided his exit would be memorable. During a live televised game, when the star player got injured, the trainer jogged onto the court, helped him up, then took the mic from the announcer's table and said, "I've been keeping these players healthy while management bleeds them dry. They don't care about athletes, only tickets. I won't be part of it. I quit. The arena went silent, then erupted in boos toward the owners. Players rallied behind him. Fans chanted his name, and within a week, the team's management was in full-blown PR crisis. Season ticket holders canceled, and sponsors threatened to pull deals. His resignation became the headline more than the game itself. Story 33. A friend of mine worked in a high-end wedding photography company. The lead photographer was world-class, but the owners pocketed most of the money and paid him scraps. At a celebrity wedding, while the owners were schmoozing with VIPs, the photographer stopped shooting, stood on a chair, and announced, "Every shot you've ever admired from this company was mine. They stole my work and paid me minimum wage. If you want true art, follow me." I quit. He packed his gear and walked out mid-wedding. Guests pulled out their phones, the bride demanded answers, and the owners panicked. By Monday, his new independent page had thousands of followers, while the old company's Yelp and Instagram were flooded with one-star reviews. Within 6 months, the company folded, and the photographer thrived on his own. Story 34. In a non-profit charity, the fundraising director was constantly pressured to inflate numbers and manipulate donors. After years of stress, she snapped during the annual fundraising gala, an event live-streamed to wealthy donors. She got on stage, tore up her speech, and said, "This organization has stolen donations meant for shelters and funneled them into executive salaries. I can't let you be lied to anymore. I quit." She dropped her ID badge into a champagne glass and walked out. Donors gasped, phones recorded everything, and within days, local news picked it up. Donations dried up, investigations began, and the nonprofit's gold standard rating was revoked. Within a year, it was defunct. Her fiery quit destroyed an entire organization's carefully curated image. Story 35. At a major airline's maintenance division, one veteran mechanic had been warning about unsafe cost-cutting for years. When management ignored him again, he waited until a high-profile press tour of the hangar with reporters present. Instead of showcasing the planes, he pointed to a grounded jet and said, "That aircraft is unsafe to fly because corporate refused to approve necessary repairs. If they won't listen, maybe you will." I quit. Cameras rolled as he threw down his tools and walked out. The story made national headlines. Passengers canceled flights, stock plummeted, and regulators stepped in. The airline spent years trying to repair its image. One mechanic's mic drop exit turned into a safety scandal that haunted the company indefinitely. Story 36. I worked in a pharmaceutical sales office where one rep was consistently #1 in sales across the region. He knew the products inside out, but management was shady, pushing him to promote drugs for uses they weren't approved for. He kept saying no until one day, during a national sales conference, he took the mic and said, "You're asking me to risk lives and my license for your bonus checks. I won't do it. This is my last day." I quit. He walked off stage, leaving stunned executives behind. Someone recorded it, and within days the video hit the news. Regulators started asking questions, doctors stopped prescribing, and the company's trusted healthcare partner image collapsed almost instantly. His resignation was the spark that triggered a major investigation that cost the company hundreds of millions. Story 37. At a luxury hotel chain, one concierge was basically the heart of the property. Celebrities requested him by name, and reviews constantly mentioned his service. Management took advantage of him, denying raises while overloading him with tasks. During a red carpet event for a major movie premiere, with press and paparazzi everywhere, he stepped into the spotlight, handed his gold name tag to the general manager, and announced, "You sell luxury on the backs of staff making poverty wages. I won't smile through exploitation anymore." I quit. Flashbulbs went wild as he walked away in full uniform. The story spread instantly, and suddenly, the hotel wasn't associated with glamour. It was associated with worker abuse. Celebrities refused to stay there. The press piled on, and the 5-star brand became a joke within months. Story 38. I knew a software developer at a government contractor who built the entire backbone of a voting security system. He warned repeatedly about vulnerabilities, but management ignored him because fixing them would cost too much. At a press demo with officials and media present, he logged into the system on his laptop and, in under a minute, bypassed all the unhackable protections. Then he said, "This is the system they want to sell you. I'm not staking my name on it." I quit. He shut his laptop and walked out while reporters scrambled for questions. The clip went viral, contracts were canceled, and the company was grilled in hearings. One resignation turned into a political scandal that destroyed years of carefully built credibility overnight. Story 39. In a high-profile art museum, the head curator was world-renowned, But the board constantly overrode her decisions in favor of donors' whims. After yet another exhibit was butchered to appease a sponsor, she staged her exit during the grand opening gala. She stepped up to the podium, turned the spotlight on a painting, and said, "This exhibit is not art. It's money laundering disguised as culture. I refuse to put my name on it. I quit." She set her curator badge on the podium and walked out to stunned silence. Within hours, guests tweeted the quote, "Newspapers covered the scandal, and donors pulled out to protect their names." Attendance plummeted, and the museum's prestigious reputation crumbled. What was meant to be a glittering night became the death of the museum's credibility. Story 40. At a mid-level tech startup, the customer support manager was a saint, always protecting his team from abusive executives. When the CEO slashed benefits while bragging about new investors, he'd had enough. During an all-hands meeting, he pulled up a giant projector slide with the CEO's yacht photos, funded by cutting employee healthcare, and said, "This is where your benefits went. I can't stomach it anymore. I quit." The room erupted, people recorded, and within hours the screenshots were plastered all over social media. The startup's glossy "we're a family" image was shredded. Job candidates ghosted them, customers boycotted, and investors pulled funding. Within 6 months, the startup folded. His one act of defiance brought down the entire visionary empire. Story 41. I used to work at a major publishing house where one editor practically carried the company. She discovered new authors, polished manuscripts, and made bestsellers. But the executives constantly cut her royalties and took public credit for her work. During a high-profile book launch party with media everywhere, she stepped up to the podium, tore up her prepared speech, and said, "Every novel you love from this publisher was edited by me. Every author they brag about was nurtured by me. And yet, I'm underpaid, ignored, and silenced. Tonight's my last night. I quit." She walked off stage while journalists were still scribbling. By the next morning, dozens of authors threatened to pull contracts, and readers spread the story online. The publisher's reputation as a literary powerhouse collapsed within months. Story 42. At a Fortune 500 bank, one mid-level risk analyst had been raising alarms about shady practices, selling high-risk loans under the guise of safe investments. Management ignored him. During a quarterly shareholder meeting broadcast online, he stood up, unbuttoned his suit jacket, and said, "Since management won't admit the truth, I will. This bank is lying about its numbers. Every document you've seen is smoke and mirrors. I quit before I become the fall guy." He handed a stack of reports to the SEC representative in the room and left. The meeting ended in chaos. The clip went viral, and within weeks the bank was under investigation. Billions were lost in shareholder value, and the bank's pristine image never recovered. Story 43. I had a friend who worked as a chef on a luxury cruise line. He loved cooking but hated how the company treated the crew. 12-hour shifts, cramped living conditions, and withheld tips. One night, at the captain's dinner with hundreds of wealthy passengers, he wheeled out the dessert cart, grabbed the mic, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your $10,000 vacation. Just know the crew that makes it possible lives like prisoners below deck. I can't be part of this scam. I quit." He walked off the ship the next time they docked. Passengers posted videos, news outlets picked it up, and suddenly the cruise line's luxury experience was overshadowed by crew abuse scandals. Bookings plummeted, and the company spent years trying to rebuild its reputation. Story 44. At a regional theater company, the lead actor had been the star for years, but the director constantly exploited him. On opening night of a sold-out show, instead of delivering his first line, he looked at the audience and said, "Behind these curtains are actors who haven't been paid in months, building sets out of their own pockets, while management pockets donations. I can't perform under lies. I quit." He dropped his script and walked off stage. The audience gasped. Some applauded. And within days, local news ran the story. Donors pulled funding, actors refused to return, and the theater's reputation as a pillar of culture was destroyed. Within a year, the building was shuttered. Story 45. I worked at a government office where one clerk knew the ins and outs of the entire system. He was constantly overlooked for promotions while his lazy boss took all the credit. One morning, during a press conference about efficient government services, he walked up to the podium, took the mic and said, "Efficient? I've been doing 3 people's jobs for the pay of 1 while my bosses sleep at their desks. This office doesn't run because of leadership. It runs because of people like me, and I'm done. I quit." He slammed his badge on the podium and walked out. Reporters had a field day, citizens stormed social media, and within days the office was a national laughingstock. Higher-ups were dragged into hearings, and the reputation of trustworthy government services was destroyed overnight. Story 46. I once worked at a prestigious law firm where the paralegal staff did all the grunt work, research, filings, and deadlines, while partners collected enormous bonuses. One senior paralegal, who'd been there for 20 years, was promised a management role but kept getting passed over. During a high-stakes trial, right before jury selection, she stood up in court, handed the judge a thick binder and said, "Your Honor, everything in this binder is my work. The man claiming he prepared it hasn't read half of it. I'm not letting him use me as a ghost anymore. I quit." She walked out of the courtroom, leaving the partner stunned. Word got around fast in the legal world, clients fled, and the firm's iron reputation crumbled. They lost the case, and within a year, half their best clients were gone. Story 47. My uncle worked for a mining company where safety was constantly ignored to keep production high. He'd warned them repeatedly about gas buildup in one section of the mine. During a live press tour with investors, instead of parroting the scripted "everything is safe" line, he pulled out a gas detector showing dangerous levels and said, "This mine is a death trap. I won't die for their bonuses. I quit." He tossed his helmet at the feet of the COO and walked away while cameras rolled. The footage went viral. Regulators stepped in, and the company's "safest in the industry" slogan turned into a joke. Production was halted, contracts were lost, and their stock plummeted. One act of defiance exposed the truth that destroyed them. Story 48. At a major fashion magazine, one photographer was the star, shooting the covers that built the brand. Management constantly paid him late and cut corners on production. At a glitzy Fashion Week after-party, he projected a slideshow of unpaid invoices on the wall and said into the mic, "You want glamour? This is what it costs. The unpaid labor of artists. I've shot your covers for 5 years. Tonight is my last. I quit." He walked out while models and designers clapped for him. Within hours, the story hit social media, and fashion bloggers amplified it. Suddenly, the magazine wasn't seen as chic, but as exploitative. Advertisers pulled deals, subscriptions dropped, and within 2 years, the magazine folded. Story 49. I worked at a big university where one IT director basically kept the entire network alive. He was constantly denied raises while being on call 24/7. During the president's State of the University address, he remotely killed the projector mid-speech and displayed a message on the screen. This entire campus runs because of one underpaid IT director. Since I'm apparently disposable, good luck running it without me. I quit. Then he walked out of the auditorium. Students cheered, faculty gasped, and reporters immediately covered it. By the next week, the network was failing, students were furious, and the university's modern tech campus image was shattered. Donations dipped hard, and the board scrambled to cover up the mess. Story 50. My friend worked for a gourmet chocolate company where she was the lead chocolatier, the one who made the intricate designs and recipes. The CEO constantly used her creations to secure new investors while barely paying her minimum wage. On Valentine's Day, the busiest day of the year, she set up a display at the front of the store with a handwritten sign. "Every chocolate you've ever loved here was made by me. I was paid less than your box of truffles. Today, I quit." She then walked out with her apron still on. Customers took pictures, shared it everywhere, and suddenly the company wasn't a luxury indulgence anymore. It was a sweatshop with pretty packaging. Sales collapsed, investors fled, and within months, the company closed stores nationwide. Story 51. I used to work at a luxury real estate firm where one top agent was single-handedly closing multi-million-dollar deals. Management constantly undercut her commissions while bragging about company success. At a huge closing ceremony for a $15 million penthouse, she handed the keys to the buyers, turned to the cameras and said, "Every deal you've heard about from this firm was mine. Every dollar they stole from me funded their fancy suits. I'm done making them rich. I quit." She left in front of stunned clients and reporters. Within a week, half her clients followed her to a new brokerage, reviews tanked, and the firm's image as a powerhouse collapsed. They never recovered from that single, perfectly timed mic drop moment. Story 52. A friend of mine worked in the film industry as a visual effects supervisor. The studio underpaid the team while executives pocketed massive bonuses. At the premiere of a blockbuster movie, during the Q&A, he grabbed the mic and said, "You loved the effects? Great. My team worked 100-hour weeks without overtime while the executives cashed checks. I won't hide the truth anymore. I quit." He walked off stage in front of the press, cast, and fans. The clip exploded online, and suddenly the studio's shining achievement was overshadowed by exploitation. VFX artists across the industry rallied behind him. News outlets reported on Hollywood sweatshops, and the studio's glossy reputation unraveled within months. Story 53. At a chain grocery store, the store manager was the glue holding everything together. He worked holidays, filled shifts, and knew every customer by name. After corporate denied him a raise for the fourth straight year, he planned his exit on Christmas Eve, the busiest day of the year. Over the loudspeaker, he said, "This store runs because of us, the workers. Corporate cut our hours, cut our benefits, and laughed when I asked for fair pay. Merry Christmas, I quit." He dropped his keys at the service desk and walked out while shoppers applauded. Videos of the speech went viral, and overnight the chain's family-friendly image was shredded. Corporate scrambled with PR statements, but customers never forgot. Story 54. At a national newspaper, one investigative journalist had his biggest story killed because it implicated a major advertiser. He'd spent a year uncovering corruption, only for the editor-in-chief to bury it. At the annual Press Awards Gala, instead of accepting his award, he read the first paragraph of the killed exposé out loud and said, "This is the story they refused to print. Tonight, I'm publishing it myself. I quit." He walked off stage, and by the next morning, his story was online and trending worldwide. Readers canceled subscriptions in droves, advertisers fled anyway, and the paper's image as a truth seeker evaporated. Within a year, circulation dropped so low that the paper had to merge just to survive. Story 55. I worked at a theme park where the head engineer kept the rides running safely. He constantly warned management about overdue maintenance, but they refused to spend money on repairs. On the 4th of July, the park's busiest day, he shut down the main roller coaster, stood on the ride platform with a megaphone and said, "This ride is unsafe. They won't fix it, so I won't run it. I quit." Families gasped, people recorded it, and local news ran the story by evening. Parents refused to bring their kids back. Regulators swarmed, and the park's safe family fun reputation was destroyed. Attendance never recovered, and within 2 seasons the park filed for bankruptcy. Story 56. I once worked at a luxury jewelry company where the head craftsman created every custom piece that brought in the high-end clientele. Management constantly paraded him around, but paid him barely more than the sales clerks. During a televised morning show segment featuring the CEO unveiling a $1 million necklace, the craftsman stepped forward and said, "That piece? I designed and made it." The CEO never touched it. This company thrives on underpaid labor and stolen credit. I quit. He removed his apron, set it on the velvet display, and walked out on live TV. Viewers were shocked, the clip went viral, and suddenly the company's image of artistry and heritage turned into a scandal about exploitation. Celebrities canceled orders, investors panicked, and the brand's prestige disappeared almost overnight. Story 57. At a massive university hospital, one surgeon was a legend. He trained dozens of young doctors and brought in millions in revenue. But the administration constantly denied his request for new equipment while building a flashy new lobby. During a live-streamed lecture to donors, instead of presenting research, he pulled up photos of broken surgical tools and underfunded labs. He said, "Your donations didn't buy better care. They built chandeliers. I can't keep operating under lies. I quit." He walked off stage, leaving donors horrified. The clip spread fast, donations dried up, and patients began moving to other hospitals. The administration scrambled, but the world-class institution image never recovered. His exit hit them harder than any lawsuit could. Story 58. My cousin worked at a political campaign office where staff were unpaid volunteers working 14-hour days while consultants pocketed millions. The campaign manager, who had been loyal for years, finally cracked. At a nationally televised rally, right before introducing the candidate, he grabbed the mic and said, "This campaign runs on unpaid labor and broken promises. I won't sell lies anymore. I quit." He threw his lanyard into the crowd and walked off. Reporters ate it up, social media exploded, and the scandal dominated headlines for weeks. Donations plummeted, staff quit in waves, and the candidate's grassroots image was obliterated. That single resignation essentially ended the campaign's momentum overnight. Story 59. At a large video game streaming company, one content moderator kept the platform safe by removing hate speech and illegal content. The executives refused to hire more staff despite warnings. During a major live esports event, the moderator hacked the giant screen mid-broadcast to display, "This platform is unsafe. Moderators are burned out and ignored. I quit." Then he unplugged his laptop and walked away as the audience gasped. The clip spread instantly, and gamers rallied online. Within hours, news outlets were covering the scandal. Advertisers suspended deals, streamers jumped ship, and the platform's reputation as community first collapsed. Investors pulled out within weeks, leaving the company scrambling to survive. Story 60. I worked at an airline catering service where one head chef oversaw thousands of in-flight meals daily. The company cut costs so brutally that food safety was constantly compromised. During a surprise visit by inspectors and executives, instead of giving the usual rehearsed tour, the chef opened a freezer full of expired food and said, "This is what passengers eat because they won't spend money on safety. I'm done. I quit." He threw his gloves on the floor and walked out. Inspectors immediately flagged violations. Flights were delayed, and within days the story was in the headlines. Customers panicked, airlines canceled contracts, and the company's trusted supplier reputation collapsed. Within a year, they filed for bankruptcy. Story 61. I worked at a high-profile environmental consulting firm that boasted about saving the planet while secretly approving shady industrial projects. One senior consultant, who actually cared about the mission, finally had enough. At a big green energy conference during a panel on corporate responsibility, she stood up and projected internal emails showing the firm had greenlit projects that polluted rivers. She looked at the crowd and said, "This company's entire image is a lie. I refuse to stand here and smile while they poison communities. I quit." She walked off stage, leaving stunned executives behind. The footage went viral, clients pulled contracts, and within a year, the firm had gone from industry leader to a pariah. One exit crushed decades of PR spin. Story 62. At a big city radio station, the morning DJ was basically the voice of the region. Management kept cutting his pay while selling massive ad packages on his popularity. One Friday, at the peak of the broadcast with thousands tuned in, he played one last song, faded the track, and said live on air, "I've been the voice you woke up to for 10 years. The station calls us family but treats staff like dirt. I can't lie anymore. I quit." Then he walked out mid-show, leaving dead air for nearly 5 minutes. Listeners flooded the station with calls, social media exploded, and advertisers dropped out. Within months, the station's ratings plummeted, and their hometown favorite reputation evaporated. Story 63. At a robotics manufacturing company, the lead engineer who designed the flagship product was constantly ignored in favor of flashy executives. During a live product launch streamed to investors, instead of showcasing the new robot, he powered it down, faced the cameras, and said, "This machine works because of me and my team. The execs you clap for did nothing but steal credit. I won't build for liars anymore. I quit." He dropped his badge on the robot itself and walked off stage. Investors panicked, the clip spread, and suddenly the company's innovative genius image was in tatters. Orders were canceled, the stock nosedived, and within 6 months, the startup imploded. Story 64. A friend worked at a 5-star ski resort where staff were overworked and underpaid while executives bragged about luxury. The resort's head ski instructor, who was beloved by guests, finally lost patience. On New Year's Eve at the resort's most crowded event, he skied down to the main lodge, grabbed the mic, and said, "This resort charges you thousands while paying us pennies. We keep you safe on these slopes, but management doesn't care if we freeze or starve. I quit." He dropped his goggles on the stage and walked off to a roar of applause from employees. Guests began canceling stays, reviews tanked, and suddenly the resort's luxury escape reputation was ruined. Within 2 years, the resort was sold off at a loss. Story 65. At a pharmaceutical research lab, a lead scientist was pressured to manipulate trial results to make a new drug look safer. She refused for months. During a press event with doctors and journalists present, instead of presenting positive findings, she revealed the real data showing serious risks. She ended with, "If they won't protect patients, then I won't protect their lives. I quit." She handed the data to reporters and walked out. The fallout was immediate. Headlines blew up. The drug approval was halted, and lawsuits piled in. The company's trusted innovation brand was destroyed, and billions evaporated overnight. Her single, savage exit reshaped the entire industry conversation about drug trials.